So, when a massive new skyscraper is unveiled in a city skyline, there's always this grand, almost theatrical moment of awe.
Oh, absolutely. Like when the scaffolding finally drops away.
Right. The scaffolding comes down, the tinted glass catches the morning light, and it's just there.
Yeah.
A sudden, towering monument. And we walk past it on our morning commute and think, wow, what an absolute triumph of engineering.
It really does feel almost magical, as if it's simply, materialized overnight.
Totally.
Because it's a completely binary experience for the observer. I mean, one day it's this chaotic construction site hidden behind some plywood, and the next it's a flawless masterpiece defining the skyline.
But what we never see, what's literally buried underground and just lost to time, are the thousands upon thousands of hours workers spent pouring concrete into the dirt.
The invisible foundation.
Exactly. We don't see them tightening individual bolts or doing the gritty, unglamorous, highly repetitive tasks that actually keep that massive building from just collapsing in on itself. We only ever get to see the shiny glass. And that illusion, that gap between the invisible foundation and the visible result, is exactly what's paralyzing us in our own digital world right now.
Oh, without a doubt.
We all want the skyscraper, but we flat out refuse to dig the hole.
Well, and our digital environment heavily, almost aggressively, reinforces that exact mindset.
How so?
You open your phone, and you are instantly bombarded with polished final products. The wildly successful brand launch, the perfectly formatted bestseller, the pristine design portfolio.
Right, it's just highlight reels.
Exactly. But the algorithms intentionally filter out the thousands of tiny, repetitive, often brutally boring actions required to build those very things.
Wow. Yeah, they really do.
So we are basically being psychologically conditioned to expect instant brilliance. We've completely lost our tolerance for the messy, invisible work of building a foundation.
Which naturally leaves us feeling incredibly overwhelmed when our own projects don't instantly look like those finished skyscrapers on our feeds.
We think we're failing.
We do. We think we're failing when we're actually just in the foundational stage. So today, we are tearing down the myth of the big win.
Love that.
We are going to rescue you from that information overload and project paralysis by exploring the mechanics of the quiet power of consistency.
That word quiet is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because the actions that actually build mastery, they rarely make a sound. They don't go viral. They don't generate, dopamine spikes from social media likes.
Right. Nobody is liking a post about you doing 20 minutes of flashcards.
Exactly. They just quietly build momentum. And the mechanism driving that momentum is actually something we usually only associate with finance, which is compound interest.
Okay, right. I mean, we all know how compound interest works in a bank account.
Sure.
You leave the money alone, the interest builds on the principal, and over years it hits an inflection point and just skyrockets. But applying that exact mathematical reality to neuroplasticity and skill acquisition completely flips the script on how we typically approach our major goals.
It really does.
Because our default setting, especially in these high-pressure environments, is assuming we need this massive, heroic effort to move the needle.
Yeah, we completely buy into the myth of the 10-hour marathon session.
Oh, the cram session.
Right. You see this all the time with ambitious professionals and students. They think, I'm going to lock myself in a room all weekend and finally master this complex UX software.
Or I'm going to cram for 3 days straight without sleeping to prepare for the IELTS.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I actually have to push back a little bit on behalf of anyone listening right now who is staring down a massive career-defining deadline.
Fair enough.
It's super easy to say, hey, don't cram, but when you are trying to master something as dense as the IELTS exam or learning professional-grade animation software,
It's a lot of material.
it is. So the idea that 20 minutes a day is going to save you, it honestly feels a bit absurd. 20 minutes feels like trying to empty the ocean with a spoon.
Right, it feels too small.
Way too small. How does such a microscopic window of time actually create any tangible progress on a massive goal?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the brain physically changes when it learns, specifically through a process called myelination.
Myelination, okay.
Yeah. When you practice a skill, say, drilling complex sentence structures for a language exam or mastering the pen tool in design software, your brain fires specific electrical signals across a neural pathway.
Okay, making a connection.
Right. Now, if you only do this during a 10-hour caffeine-fueled panic session, your brain fatigues.
Oh, absolutely.
Cortisol spikes, which actually inhibits learning, and you just hit cognitive overload. You are exhausted, and the pathway degrades almost as soon as the weekend is over.
So the 10-hour marathon is basically just surface-level memorization that evaporates the second you stop panicking.
Exactly, it doesn't stick. But if you practice that specific skill for just 20 minutes every single morning, a completely different physiological process occurs. The consistent daily frequency signals to your brain that this neural pathway is vital for your survival.
Wow, survival.
Yeah. So the brain starts wrapping those specific neural circuits in a fatty white substance called myelin. And myelin acts just like insulation on a copper wire. It makes the electrical signal travel faster, stronger, and way more efficiently.
So 20 minutes isn't just a drop in a bucket. It's actively upgrading the hardware in your brain.
It is literal neurological infrastructure. That's the beauty of it. The magic is not in the volume of time spent in any single agonizing session.
Right.
It is entirely about the consistency of the frequency. 20 minutes of focused, daily effort myelinates the pathway. It makes the skill automatic.
Yeah.
And crucially, because it's only 20 minutes, it completely prevents the cognitive fatigue and burnout that derail those massive weekend marathons.
You don't have time to get exhausted.
Exactly. You are essentially taking the friction out of the learning process.
Which makes total logical sense when you frame it as upgrading your neural hardware. Like the math checks out.
Yeah.
But knowing the biology of neuroplasticity doesn't exactly stop human nature.
True.
Because if 20 minutes is physiologically the best way to learn, and it's objectively a tiny amount of time, why do we still procrastinate?
That is the million-dollar question.
I mean, 20 minutes is literally nothing. I spend 20 minutes just scrolling, trying to decide what to watch on TV.
We all do.
So why is it so incredibly hard to just sit down and do 20 minutes of actual work? There has to be a deeper psychological roadblock here.
There is, and it's arguably the most universal hurdle every creator, student, or professional faces. It's the blank canvas anxiety.
Ugh, the worst.
When you stare at an empty screen, a blank document, or a new project file, your brain actually perceives it as a threat.
Wait, really, a threat? Like an actual physical danger?
A social and ego threat. Yes, it triggers the amygdala.
Wow.
Why? Because we subconsciously expect that whatever we produce during that little 20-minute session needs to be perfect right out of the gate.
Oh, because we're comparing it to the finished skyscrapers we see online.
Precisely. We are holding our raw, unformed ideas up against those polished skyscrapers on our digital feeds. And the gap between the blank page and the finished masterpiece is so impossibly wide that the brain's threat response system kicks in.
It just shuts you down.
It tells you to avoid the task entirely. So procrastination isn't laziness.
It's not.
No, it is a profound failure of emotional regulation in the face of anxiety.
Wow. We want the finished floor plan in our very first sketch. And when we realize we don't have it, we just close the laptop and walk away.
Exactly. To bypass this, the most resilient professionals employ a completely counterintuitive strategy.
What do they do?
They shift their entire focus from quality to quantity.
Quantity.
Yes. They understand that the absolute baseline necessity is simply showing up and producing something. Anything. Even if it is wildly, embarrassingly flawed. You have to give yourself the raw materials first.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because thinking about this in terms of the body rather than the mind makes it so much clearer for me. Yeah, it's almost exactly like going to the gym and just lifting the empty bar.
I love that analogy.
Right, like if you've never done a heavy back squat before, you don't walk into a gym and load 300 pounds onto the rack on your first day.
You would be crushed.
You would be completely crushed. So you step up and you put the empty 45-pound bar on your back.
And the goal in that moment has absolutely nothing to do with muscle hypertrophy or breaking records.
Exactly. The goal is just showing your brain and your central nervous system that the gym isn't a terrifying place.
Yes.
You're teaching your body the basic movement pattern without the dangerous load. So producing a terrible, highly flawed first draft is the exact same mechanism. It is lifting the empty bar.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it, because lifting that empty bar isn't a failure to lie heavyweight.
Right.
It is the mandatory, non-negotiable prerequisite to eventually lifting heavyweight.
You have to start there.
You do. When you shift your mindset to producing quantity, just getting the ink on the page or the pixels on the screen, you aren't lowering your professional standards. You are simply planting the seed.
Planting the seed before you can prune the tree.
Exactly. You cannot edit a blank page.
Yeah.
You cannot refine a brilliant architectural design that you haven't yet dared to draft.
It's impossible.
You need the ugly raw clay on the table before you can even begin to sculpt it into high-quality work. The initial 20 minutes isn't about creating the masterpiece, it's just about getting your hands in the dirt and planting a deeply imperfect seed.
Which takes all the pressure off. It tells you that your only job today is just to survive the empty bar.
Exactly.
But, okay, let's look at the long game here. We've dismantled the fear of starting. We're showing up for our 20 minutes, we're myelinating our neural pathways, and we're bravely planting those imperfect seeds.
All good things.
But eventually, you do have to build the whole building. You can't just stare at a pile of seeds forever and call it a career.
Right.
So how do we sustain this over the months or years it actually takes to finish something massive?
Well, this requires a fundamental reframing of how we visualize the trajectory of success itself.
Right.
The digital era has sold us on this idea that success is a lightning bolt.
The lightning bolt.
Yeah, a sudden, violent flash of inspiration where everything just magically falls into place and you are instantly elevated to the top of your field.
Oh, the eureka moment. We are obsessed with it. We watch interviews with founders or artists, and they always seem to have that one sudden moment of clarity that just changed everything.
Right, but those interviews are narratives constructed after the fact.
Good point.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, waiting for the lightning bolt sets you up for chronic, debilitating disappointment.
How so?
Think about the psychology of it. You sit down to work, you wait for the lightning to strike, and it doesn't.
Right.
Because it's lightning. It's erratic, it's rare, and it's entirely out of your control.
Yeah.
So what happens? You immediately internalize that failure. You think, well, I must not be talented enough. I must not be a real designer or a real writer. I just don't have the gift.
It turns a process issue into an identity crisis.
Exactly. Instead, we have to look at the reality of how complex things are actually built. It isn't a lightning bolt. It is a 3D printer.
Oh, I like that. A 3D printer.
Think about watching a 3D printer at work. If you stare at it for 1 minute, it looks like it's doing absolutely nothing.
It's so boring.
It is. It is just quietly humming along, depositing microscopic, entirely invisible layers of resin. It's tedious. But if you walk away and come back 10 hours later, that machine has steadily, relentlessly built a highly complex, solid geometric object out of liquid.
It's the ultimate manifestation of the compound effect.
Yes.
The layers are invisible in the moment, but undeniable in the aggregate.
And that is exactly how you have to view your long-term projects. You are not a lightning rod waiting to be struck by genius. You are the 3D printer.
Wow.
Your job is just to deposit today's microscopic layer of resin.
Just one layer.
Right. It normalizes the daily grind. It protects your creative energy because you are no longer demanding daily miracles from yourself. You are only demanding daily layers.
Which brings the control entirely back into your hands. I mean, you can't control lightning, but you can definitely program a 3D printer to keep moving.
Yeah, exactly.
But, and here's the friction point I constantly hit, even knowing all of this, when you are standing at the base of a massive mountain of a project, looking up at the peak still triggers that vertigo.
Of course it does.
You need to print the layers, you need to lift the empty bar, but the sheer volume of work ahead is just completely paralyzing.
Well, it's that amygdala hijack we talked about earlier.
Right.
When the brain perceives the scale of the entire project, the cognitive load is so heavy that the nervous system basically hits the emergency brake.
So what do we do?
To counteract this, you have to manipulate your brain's dopamine regulation system to break the inertia. And the most effective way to do that is a wildly simple strategy. It's called the 10-minute rule.
So wait, not the 20 minutes for myelination, just 10 minutes.
Just 10 minutes. If you are paralyzed by a daunting task, stop looking at the mountain. You literally have to force your field of vision down to the ground directly in front of your feet.
Okay.
Ask yourself, what is one incredibly small, hyper-specific thing I can complete in the next 10 minutes? And you only commit to that 10 minutes. If you want to stop after 10 minutes, you have full permission to walk away.
So what does this all mean? It's a psychological trick, right?
Yeah.
You're lowering the barrier to entry so much that your brain can no longer justify the threat response.
Exactly. And it's entirely rooted in physics. Think about static friction versus kinetic friction.
Okay, take me back to science class.
It takes significantly more energy to move an object from a dead stop, which is static friction, than it does to keep that object moving once it's already sliding.
Right, getting it moving is the hard part.
Always. The friction of starting is always the absolute highest hurdle. When you commit to just 10 minutes, you are only spending the energy to overcome that initial static friction.
You're just getting the object to slide.
Right, and here is where the dopamine kicks in. In those first 10 minutes, you complete a tiny microtask.
Like what?
You open the software, you write one bad paragraph, you just organize a folder. The completion of that tiny task releases a micro hit of dopamine in the brain. And dopamine isn't just a pleasure chemical, it is the molecule of motivation. It literally propels you toward the next action.
So it builds on itself.
Exactly. So by the time your 10-minute timer goes off, the static friction is gone, the dopamine is flowing, and continuing to work is actually easier than stopping.
You've lifted the empty bar, the fear dissipates, and the momentum just takes over. You naturally want to print the next layer.
Exactly.
But the trick only works if you genuinely give yourself permission to stop. You have to focus entirely on mixing one single bucket of concrete and completely forget about the finished skyscraper.
That is the crucial discipline. The moment you start thinking about the skyscraper again, the amygdala fires back up, the static friction returns, and you paralyze yourself all over again.
Wow. So let's bring this all together. What does this mean for you, sitting here right now, trying to navigate a world that demands instant, polished perfection? It means we have to radically change our relationship with our own work. We are actively trading the culturally celebrated myth of the sudden lightning bolt for the grounded, undeniable reality of the 3D printer.
Yes.
We're learning to leverage the compound effect, using those daily 20-minute sessions to physically upgrade the neurological wiring in our brains.
And we are defeating that paralyzing blank canvas anxiety by understanding it for what it truly is, which is just a miscalibrated threat response.
Right.
You beat it by bravely choosing to prioritize quantity over quality in the beginning, by just planting the ugly seed.
We are choosing to lift the empty bar, because letting go of the illusion of the finished product is actually the only way to start building it.
Exactly.
The digital world wants you to believe in overnight success, but the reality of mastery is so much quieter, so much grittier, and in a deeply comforting way, it's just so much more accessible.
It really is.
It isn't reserved for the chosen few who get struck by lightning. It is available to anyone willing to deposit the layers.
It's accessible because anyone, regardless of their skill level or their anxiety, can survive 10 minutes.
Exactly. So here is my direct challenge to you today.
Let's hear it.
Look at whatever overwhelming project is currently sitting on your desk. The one that's giving you that mountain anxiety. The one triggering your fight or flight response every time you even look at the file. I want you to literally apply the 10-minute rule right now.
Just 10 minutes.
Don't worry about the finished skyscraper. Don't worry about the quality. Just ask yourself, what is the tiniest piece of foundation I can pour in the next 10 minutes to break the static friction?
I love that. And as you sit down to do that, consider the broader implications of everything we've unpacked today.
Yeah.
If massive success isn't a lightning bolt, if it is truly just the compound effect of 10 and 20-minute imperfect actions performed consistently over years to myelinate our neural pathways,
Right.
what does that say about how we define talent in our society?
Oh, that's a brilliant question.
Are the creative geniuses and the brilliant innovators we constantly idolize actually inherently gifted? Or are they simply the people who figured out how to stop looking at the mountain, lowered their threat response, and just focused on planting one tiny, imperfect seed every single day?
That completely shifts the paradigm, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It takes genius down from this untouchable pedestal and puts the tools right back into your hands. Suddenly, the impossible skyline seems entirely within reach, just one microscopic layer at a time. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep building, keep breaking that static friction, and we will catch you next time.